When you find that out at the end, it's kind of obvious.
Yes, because like when he passed out at the beginning, he woke up staring at... Hey y'all, we're Abnormal Japan, and today we're going to be reviewing the Netflix movie Fractured.
We reacted to the trailer in the last video, so if you want more context, check the iCard or description down below.
But before we get into it, check out our podcast where we talk all things Japan. We're on all major platforms, and yeah, follow our socials to stay updated. All the links will be below. Yeah,
we're pretty dope. So let's get into it. Thoughts on this movie?
All right, initial thoughts. I will say it's a pretty sad movie. It's not so much of a horror movie like what we were kind of expecting to review this month. It's definitely full of mystery. It's kind of suspenseful, and it really talks a lot about like PTSD and alcoholism, and it's just pretty sad by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Although there was something about, can you solve the mystery?
Yeah.
Ain't no mystery.
And honestly, our first theory, because we were kind of like taking mental notes throughout the movie, and we both had similar theories, and it was exactly what happened. So it kind of felt like we went on a roller coaster ride, and we went through different theories, because they did kind of try to confuse you.
Right. But there were some traps, there were some misguides and stuff like that.
But it just felt like kind of a waste of time because it was so predictable. It was like, oh, okay, so what the audience initially probably thought of is what happened, but we were just running around for no reason.
It was engaging, right? It was engaging in that even if you knew, you were like, all right, let's see where this goes. But there was no mystery. It was not very the mystery part of it, I feel like they hyped up a little too much. I think because that's one thing I remember from the trailer. I was like, ooh, Fractured, like what's going on? And there are several hints, and like there's a whole lot of like unreliable narrator kind of stuff, but
so I will say there's a lot going on. So you start off with Ray, the dad, and the mother, Jo, and the child, Perry. Yeah. They're all driving in the car, and the parents are having an argument. The child's trying to distract itself with like its toy. And they have to stop at a gas station to get batteries, or the kid forgets something in the bathroom, so the mom goes back and checks it. Right. And so what you see here, this is where you start to notice that he has an alcohol problem, because he's like staring at the beer, and instead of buying the kid batteries, he buys like the little liquor bottles and he puts it in his coffee. He's like, yeah, like I feel so much better.
Stop it. Get some help.
But he ends up spilling that in the car while he's trying to find the kid's toy. But as he's doing that, the kid kind of ventures off, and you see different things. You see this balloon that you see later on in the movie.
We had a couple theories. One of them was confirmed from the very beginning, because it's a real weird switch. So what happens is there's a dog, the girl gets scared, the dad tries to throw a rock, spook the dog or whatever, but the girl's like, and then she falls. Yeah. And so we already see this in the trailer, but he hits his head real hard. And so that's when we came up with the theory, like, oh snap, like what if,
What threw it off for me is that when he passed out, in his head he had the dialogue, they're both gone, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
And when he first got up, the mom was like shaking him. It was like really frustrated because the daughter was probably dead. But then it kind of like switches up, and then apparently the daughter is fine and she's not bleeding because like she hit her head, Yeah,
she hit the ground hard.
So he has this idea of what he thought happened. And so the whole movie goes through this loops of him being at the hospital, and like apparently they were being taken care of, and all these things. He like made up this whole thing in his mind. But what actually happened is that when his daughter fell, she actually hit her head and she bled out. And then the mom, when she came down, was like shaking him like, oh my god, what'd you do? And then he just like kind of hit her, or like
she was her, like, and he was like, hey, get off me.
Yeah. And then she hit her head on like a metal
spike construction kind of thing. It was, when you find that out at the end, it's kind of obvious.
Yes, because like when he passed out at the beginning, he woke up staring at the spike. And so you're like, that has something to do with something later.
Right.
You know? Yeah, so his wife and daughter are dead. And so what he ended up doing was like putting them in his car and stuff like that. So I don't know, this whole movie was weird because it tried to make you think that the hospital was doing something sketchy.
And it's very easy to kind of fall into that as well because he's an unreliable narrator, right? Like in his mind, something's going on. But like it's very easy to see that these are just normal hospital things and like he's just paranoid. You know what I mean?
And then with the mix of PTSD, because there's this shot in the hospital where he sees a commercial and it's like a military type commercial and he kind of smirks and he's like, oh, I feel good that like I was probably part of that. He probably went to war or something like that.
Right.
And also his precision with the gun.
Yeah,
like
that was real
that
targeted.
was some military grade shooting. Like the way he was able to even do that in the first place, and then how he shot people was like, oh, okay.
Right. There's even a fight scene where he gets into it's an elevator fight scene. It's actually pretty good. I was impressed. They had a fight scene with him and a security guard, and they're just going at it, fighting each other back and forth, like throwing against the walls. And like he ends up, I guess, beating or killing. I don't know. It's unclear. But he takes the security out with a specific like chokehold. And unless you do like MMA training or if you're in some kind of like police force or military force, you know, not everybody can just do that. You know? Like,
so
you gotta
that
know
was
what
like,
you're
okay.
doing.
He clearly knew what he was doing. And then what was really weird too is that like when he finally got to the bottom floor, because you know, he was thinking that the hospital was trying to confuse him that, you know, his family's actually in the third floor. If they did get a CAT scan, he's like, no, they went to the bottom floor, and which never actually happened because his family is in the trunk of his car. But he does end up going to the bottom floor, and he's like, oh my god, there needs to be a key, and that's where he had the fight scene. He got the keys, he went down there, but he kept envisioning and more so hallucinating like human organ boxes, and he's like, they're trying to take my family's organs, which is sort of believable at a certain point if you're going with that theory that the hospital is playing games.
And also there were certain things like different hospital workers playing different roles. I've seen a lot of hospital dramas. That's not uncommon. Like you can work as an office person and then like as in a scrubs and rotation, or you can wear a coat as a doctor and then take it off if you're doing rounds or whatever. Like that's not uncommon.
To me, it was a little weird with certain roles. Like the lady taking his information at the beginning. I was like, wait, why is she doing surgery? So that was what made me feel like, okay, he's tripping. They actually have different roles than he thought. But when he goes down there and he finds surgery going on, he sees those faces that he believed were playing games with him. And he hallucinates that his daughter is in the bed, but it's actually some random patient.
Yeah, some dude. They brought him in earlier.
And he abducts the patient. He ends up like shooting the oxygen. And I remember in our trailer reaction, I was like, I wonder what got him to the point to first off have a gun in the hospital and then like to make such an explosion. And
now we know.
Now we know.
He's not there.
And so he has this hallucination that he has his wife and kid in the wheelchair, but it's actually this patient who was in the middle of surgery. And then he puts his wife and kids in the back of his car. He's like, oh, I made it. And like his wife is talking back to him like, oh yeah, just take us home, we made it. And that's how you know. And then he's like singing a song that reminds him of his daughter. Yeah,
what's wild too is like when we were talking about the reactions of how she was like, ah, and then she's like, no, and like that threw me because again, we're married. Like if something happens, we're not just gonna be like, oh yeah, hey.
It's time to stop, okay?
When his daughter died, but when he actually saw it as her just like hurting her arm.
Yeah, like she broke her arm on the fall.
Yeah, and so that's when they went to the hospital. First off, he was the one with the concussion, but apparently she was okay with him driving, and then he was speed driving. He was getting this adrenaline, which is a huge issue with people with alcohol issues, is that they thrive off of that adrenaline. So he was like speed driving. That kind of made it for me. I was like, oh, she's speaking to him like it's his conscience.
Yeah, and then also like on the way there, they're driving and he's playing chicken, right? He's like, shoo. And then she's like, we made it. And he's like,
and that is not normal. If that were me, I would have been like, pull over. You're clearly not driving
and
correctly.
Also, if I fell, I'm not driving.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That was just weird. I mean, it was slightly believable, but it wasn't. And the whole time, they weren't in the same frame in the hospital. So, like, if he was sitting down in the waiting room, his wife and kid were, like, on the opposite row. Like, normally, if you're with your family, you're sitting together, and there were spaces. There was empty seats next to them. But it was like he was facing them, and then anytime he was talking to her, it was just him, and then it was just them two. And then everybody was looking at him like he was, you know, going a little mad. So
yeah, and like what I joked about this in the trailer reaction. I was like, maybe it's a shift change. Yeah, no, there was a shift change.
There was a full shift change, and they were like
who are you? Like, what's going on?
So yeah, I mean, there was different theories that I had. The first one was that like he killed his family at the construction site next to the gas station.
Yeah, I think we both were like, I think he did it, and we were talking about it through the thing, and you know,
and then like it was like, okay, let's go with the theory that like the hospital's playing games and they're selling people's organs. It wasn't that believable, but I was like, it's in the middle of nowhere, who knows, it could be a shady hospital. There was a lot going on, and I'm sure if you watched the movie, you probably went through a lot of different theories, or you were probably like us, like that first part of the movie you nailed it. But why did we continue watching it though?
All right, so here's the thing, right? It looked really good, you know. It was well acted too by the main like guy, and I love talking, like not talking, but like commentating through movies. If y'all want to see movie commentaries, that's something I'm down with. So let us know. But it was a good conversation starter.
Oh, like it was just a movie that you watch. It was pretty long though. It was like an hour 40, I think.
Yeah, hour 40.
Yeah.
It was. It did lag at sometimes. The part where he kind of falls asleep in the waiting room, and then we have to meet a whole new bunch of characters. That I felt like could have been shorter.
Yeah, that was dragged on. Oh, and that part where he was being detained by that like weak security guard dude who had an ego problem. He probably thought he was a real cop. He like detained him, and apparently all the cabinets just aren't locked, and so he's looking for different things, and he finds adrenaline. It's like
that kind of led credence to like the whole military thing, because he knew what to do. You know
it was just weird. I feel like there's a lot of stereotypes, and we're not in those communities, so we don't know if that was pretty accurate. But like, he just took adrenaline, he put it in his thigh, and then apparently it wasn't enough, and he was on a sedative.
Yeah, because this lady, she like, and he was like dozy and like dizzy and like dozing off and stuff. So yeah.
And then he's like, oh, that's not enough, and he puts like 2 other ones into his thighs. What was funny about that part, he like punches through the window and gets out, you know, he unlocks the door.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing. Like, he's like done this before, right? Or he's trained for it.
Something.
And it was funny because he was just like, you know, that move where people are like, you know, I didn't do anything wrong. You know, I'm just walking through
like he was he didn't guilty at all.
I know, and everyone was just like, he really thought that no one noticed.
No one noticed the broken glass, the
loud noise,
nothing. He was just like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just walking through here. Like, what?
But like I said, it was sad because like,
it got sad for the end.
He really thought he saved his family. It just was like, man, he's gone. Like, I think at this point irreversible, and it really kind of showed like people who deal with PTSD, it could be all different kinds of ways. And
and when the psychologist came through, she was really trying. She was like, hey, let's figure this out.
Yeah,
she tried so hard, and he didn't give up. he held on to his delusion. And
but what I liked about her character, and something that a lot of psychologists do, they try to get into the mind of the person and try to find a way to believe them, because often these people who deal with stuff, it's like you kind of enable their instability when you're mocking them, or when you're like, oh, you're just crazy.
It just forces them to double down.
Yeah, and she's like, you know what, just talk to me, what's going on, and blah blah, let's go through it, let's see, prove to me that you're right. And so that kind of calmed him down a little bit. But yeah, he went all the way to the point where he was taking a patient hostage.
He did.
Yeah. You're coming with me.
Okay. And like the psychologist, she was even trying to be like, maybe your wife and daughter aren't real. Like, she didn't know, because she came in, she's like, what's going on? Turns out they were real, because we were on that train too. It was around that time we were like, maybe they're not real. I don't know. But,
I know. I was like, this is too wild. Like, what's going on?
But they went to the gas station, they found blood, and I was like, oh yeah, so he definitely killed them. Like,
It was me all along.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But then they still try to play it like, when he goes back to the hospital.
You must think I'm pretty dumb, huh? Yes!
It was just, if you're ready for a roller coaster ride, like, that's what I said. Like, that's what it is.
I will say, though, and this is like my last thoughts on it, the movie was like a horror, suspense, drama, but like it was kind of like a comedy to me. I was laughing, I'm not gonna lie. The way they were shooting it, sometimes I couldn't help but laugh. Like the glass, he was just like, yeah, all right, let's go. I was laughing. That was too good, man.
So let's give some ratings for for the movie. Let's start with story, 1 to 5. What would you rate it? 1 being the lowest.
If I hadn't watched the trailer, the rating would be higher.
Dang.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you go first. Let me try to figure out what I'm trying to say.
Story, I'd give it a 3.
3?
Yeah, it's in the middle. Like,
all right.
It held together, but it was very predictable. So I'm being nice with that 3. But I don't want to give it a lower rating than In the Tall Grass. I really should have gave that movie a lower rating. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'll give it a 2.5.
Okay.
2.5, because I was interested for sure, and we watched the whole thing. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't.
So what about the acting?
Ooh, this one's tough.
So I think the acting was actually pretty good.
What are you gonna give it?
I think I'd give it a 4.
4. All right. I'll say 4.5. Okay, here's the thing. The plot was very transparent, right? But what made it transparent was that the acting was really good and convincing. So 4.5. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever seen, but it was actually engaging. Like, you felt like these were real people. So I think the performance really sold the whole thing. What about cinematics?
I think it really showed that it was gloomy, and that it was in November, and it was like in Minnesota. Like, that whole story, it really came through with the filming. So I think the cinematics were pretty good.
Okay.
The ending sunset was beautiful. Since it wasn't mainly about cinematics, I'll just give it like a 3.5.
Okay.
But it was pretty good.
I'm gonna agree with you. 3.5.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad, and it wasn't like wet. So.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the mystery? Like, how good was the mystery?
Are we done?
Wow.
Gonna...
I'd give it.
That's the video. Bye.
1. I'd give it at least a 1. Come on. We stayed to watch it.
That's not because the mystery. That's not because the mystery.
Okay, yeah, it was a pretty bad mystery, y'all. Like, it was like, okay, we found out, and I was kind of mad at the end because I was like, so this whole time, I was right. Maybe we're just good at that. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Let us know if y'all figured it out.
The writer was really trying to tell you the first theory is right. But they also kind of played around with like, oh, it could be this, it could be that.
Yeah, like the whole unreliable narrator thing, that was really well done.
So it was like a game, but like it was pretty easy to figure out.
Like, it was actually well shot and acted, but it was not that deep.
Yeah, it wasn't that deep at all. All right, well, like this video if you enjoyed this, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and follow our podcast. We talk a lot about other things there, so if movies aren't your thing, check that out. And yeah,
leave a comment if you figured out the mystery. Like, how long did it take?
Or are we wrong? I doubt it, but are we wrong? And tell us your theory below. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.